are available, and especially for beginners, those who have this issue with starting and all these things, and which design should be selected and all this. So I hope that I can clear each and every doubt also for the participants, so that it can be helpful, and we achieve our motive, which was behind this STTP. Yeah. So I would like to share my screen first, and then we can begin. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. The screen is visible.
So once again, I wish all the participants a very good morning. Yeah. So before starting the session, I would like to brief you out like what we'll be looking into these two sessions, morning and the afternoon session. Like let us start with the morning session and the afternoon session. The first thing is each and every researcher, or maybe the beginners, or researcher thing. First thing what comes to mind is, should we use DOE? Like in the second session of the first day, like we were discussing, right? Like what actually is DOE? Why we need DOE? Isn't it? Like the first thing is, like always we try to see that with the minimum amount of or we can say minimum effort, we try to see that we maximize the output. So that was the main focus of the second session in the first day, and with many examples, we went through like why we need DOE, because what happens is we are not able to extract. If you see normal statistical tools or normal graphs and all this, we are not able to extract actually what is the impact of it. Okay, and apart from that, we were not able to say which factor is affecting more, or at which levels we are good at, isn't it? So these were all the things. And apart from that, the regression equations, and then carrying it on towards the end. Okay, so these all things were a bit problematic thing. So today my focus would be majorly on first, it is for the beginners. Apart from that, we'll be looking into one factor at a time, 2 to the power of k factorial designs, then full factorial designs, a bit an hint of a fractional factorial design that would be covered in the morning session. Apart from this, in the afternoon session, we'll be looking into RSM, that is response surface methodology, and how it is different from one factor at a time or full factorial or fractional factorials. Okay. So these are the things that we'll be covering up. So I hope that each and every participants would be with us, so that depending on their requirements, I'll be also dealing with what kind of things can be dealt, or what kind of design is suitable for particular application, and this all things will be coming up in between. So I hope each and every participants be with us, so that we can go through, and when we are going through, when they browse, or when they like, I hope that each and every participant is doing some or the other kind of research, or they'll be having some things running in their mind, so that at least you can map up, or you can just try to compare with what we are going through, and you can just be interactive in between. Yes, you can you can stop me in between, and please you can just clear the doubts there itself, so that it is actually beneficial for others also. Some people actually don't ask. So I hope with this brief, let us start today's session. So generally, we start with the factorial experiments. So coming to the factorial experiment, we have written it full factorial, fine. Creates experimental points using all the possible combinations of the levels of the factors in each complete trial or replication of the experiment. Fine. Let us keep this thing aside. Now coming to the goal, actually, what we are looking for the goal is maximum information with minimum number of experiments. Yes, each and every experimenter wants or is very comfortable or is like we are greedy of getting more information, isn't it? If you go with statistics or let it be business or let it be any field of research and engineering or medical, as I showed you last time, medical covered like around 19%, right? So when we can extract maximum information with minimum number of experiments, we are utilizing the time. Apart from that, we are reducing the effort that is required. And when this opportunity is there with us using design of experiments, as design of experiments still is a statistical tool, but what does it do is it enhances the output actually, right? You have with the same input, it enhances the output. So that is what each and every one is looking into. So we are not putting any additional effort in doing the experiments. Actually, in fact, when we look into it, we are doing minimum number of experiments and we are getting the maximum output. So that is what we are targeting at. So there isn't anything bad in using design of experiment. Just if your design, if your experimentation, what you're doing suits any of the design that we've been looking into today's session, then use it. That's it. Apart from that, what people do is we try to sometimes force fit the things, so that we need to discuss anyhow, but we don't need to force fit things. That is one thing that we should keep in mind. Okay, so as we were looking into, yes, if your experimentation suits any of the design what we are dealing with today, then yes, fine, we can use these things. Or else, yes, sometimes if we can, for adjustment, some adjustment if you want to do some factors or some levels, if you don't want to use it up, yes, then yes, you can vomit that. By your knowledge, you can vomit that, and then yes, we can use it. So that is a bit briefing. So let us start. So what is actually required? Okay, so experimental design consists of specifying the number of experiments, the factors, level combinations for each experiment, and the number of replicates. So generally, how we begin? First thing is we need to know all these things, right? Like what we say, number of experiments, factors, levels, combinations, and all these things. But how will you know all these things? So let us start with this, with the planning. So usually when it comes to any experimentation, we want to find or we concentrate on the output. Okay, we concentrate on the output, which we generally call in this is response. So usually we call it a response. So we want to know what is the response. It may be a single response or it may be multiple responses. Okay, it depends on if it's a multi-response thing, then yes, you can have multi-responses, or it can be a single response. Okay, then what conditions you are looking into? Okay, conditions maybe the factors and levels. Factors and levels. So these are the things that you need to decide, and which units in which you are doing the experimentation. So generally we call, like the example what we took regarding the mileage thing, where we compared two bikes, one of 100cc and the other one was 150cc. So there we compared the bikes, and I hope everyone remembers that example. And we were into checking the mileage comparison of the two bikes, and we gave them some conditions. So these were the conditions, and we gave the levels also, like number of persons, cc of an engine, and average speed. So what was that we were checking was, like I just gave it here, like kilometers per liter, right? How much is the mileage? Okay. Yes. Now, because this all things were fine. Yes, you know the output. Yes, the output everyone knows, right? Isn't it just a simple thing? Like why I'm doing all this experimentation? If you ask the question yourself, you'll be knowing what is the response. Yes, but now deciding two things, that is factors and levels. These are the two things that are majorly important when you want to do experimentation. So most of the people or most of the researchers don't concentrate on the factors and the levels which are actually affecting the process. There may be n number of processes, n number of factors which affect the process, and there will be n number of levels of these factors also. The major issue, like where people drop out is, or people do mistakes, is selecting the factors and the levels, and then what we do is we try to like select some design which is not, which doesn't fit actually our requirement. So the major mistake where we do is these things. Okay. Sometimes what we say is we need a response surface. Somewhere we got an information that the response surface gives very good graphs, like all surface graphs will be there in response surface. So why can't we do direct response surface? There are some people like suggest Taguchi. When you do Taguchi, we are getting very less number of experiments. Then why can't we do a very less number of experiments directly? Yes, but this both are actually wrong adaptation actually. Right? So what we have to look into is how or which design is actually apt for us, and how to do all this, or how to find out all these things. And each and everything, what like I would suggest from my experience is that each and every in scientific community, each and everything should be with proof. Okay, I can't say that I thought something was there and that's why I kept it, or some research paper or some journal referred this or showed this, so I am also adapting the same thing. So most of the major part of the like if you are a scholar, I know that you will be facing this question each and every time you go for presentation, isn't it? So the best way of answering the queries of your investigator, or let it be the journal editors or reviewers and all this thing, is simply following some ground rules that we'll be discussing today. Okay. Yeah. So let me start again, once again. So let me brief out those who are new enough. First thing is we need a response variable, which actually is called as the outcome of an experiment. Some terminologies, please bear with me. Next, we have factors. Each variable that affects the response variable and has several alternates, right? It has several alternates. Usually, like there will be n number of factors that will be affecting. So if you see in thermodynamics, heat transfer, machine design, manufacturing, most of the time we just vomit something, or we say that we are keeping it constant, isn't it? Ambient temperature, we keep it as constant, and design also, like we keep many things as constant. So some things that was from their experience, they have kept it constant. But for us, like when we see for a new researcher, or when we are entering into a new area, generally I suppose that research means entering into a new area. So when you have a new terrain to explore, then how can you say that like anything is related with you? Yes, your predecessors or like the journals what you get may have done the same area of work, but for you, where you're entering is completely different. So that what I told you, the terrain where you enter the new thing, that we'll be discussing a bit later after we see the terminologies. Yes, then the values that a factor can assume is one. Then we have primary factors, secondary factors. So these factors whose effect need to be quantified. Okay. And the factors that impact the performance, but those impact are not interested in quantifying. So this I was speaking about. So you need to decide as a researcher, you need to decide for the response what you're looking at. For the response what you're looking at, what is a primary factor, means most affecting factor, and okay, most affecting factor and least affecting factor. So which one actually is, which one you need to consider? There will be a number of factors, but careful observation is required. Yes, if you can do with careful observation, that is fine. Otherwise, we have ground rules through which you can identify the factors and identify the levels of your experimentation. Right. So if you are into a completely new terrain, like if you see chemical, pharma, and all they are like, they do research like day in and day out, like 24/7. You see, like after the COVID and all these things, 24/7 they are into one or the other new research. They are into completely new terrain. Okay, so they for them it's very difficult, which factor is affecting, which is not affecting, and for them actually human trials and all these things are there, right? So for them, deciding this factor, this is very important, and they need, when it comes to humans, they need 100% quantification that yes, what you have decided is right. So for that also we need some of the experimentation. That's why I told you, right, in the medical field, people use it extensively actually. Then you have some replications. So why you need replications also you should know. The main reason why you need replication is to overcome the drawbacks or errors of the terrain or the experimentation what you're going into. If you are using some it may be errors due to human errors, or it may be due to the instrument errors, or maybe while measurement you have some errors, right? So for overcoming that, or for assuring that whatever you have done is like is you are in the right form, then you need to have some replication. It's like simply when I lock my home, isn't it? Everyone does it, right? Once we lock the home, we know that we have locked the home, but still we try to pull the lock and check it up. Yes, is it locked or not? So what does that mean? Knowingly or unknowingly, we do it actually. So what I meant to say is like this all things what design of experiment is doing, we do it in general terminologies. In day-to-day life, we actually do it, but we never care about that much. Apart from that, many of you would have locked your cars, isn't it? You have locked your cars, you may heard that buzzer, but still what to do is you try to check the handle. Is the door opening or not? Then why do you need a center locking actually? Isn't it? It could be a manual one. So that is one way. Apart from that, and your bike handle locks also. Normally, human is like addicted. It's something is already pre-programmed. No, repeatedly when we do, like everyone says that 21 days, if you repeat one habit, it will be a part of your life. So, but your bikes would be like from years together, and you'll be locking it day in and day out. But still, once it is done, you just verify the handle also. You just move your handle and then check, yes, is it locked or not? Yes, that is also replication. But when it comes to experimentation, research, and PhDs and all these things, we try to say that okay, it's fine. Who will do all this experimentation, time consuming, all this? But still, day in and day out, we do all these things: factors, levels, replications. Day in and day out, we do each and every time these things. Okay. Yes. So experimental unit is the one where you see that yes, something is affecting there. Then you have interactions. Then you have, like we say that you have, when you have two factors like factor A and factor B, if the effect of one depends on the other on the level of the other. Yes. Don't we have interactions in day in and day out? Yes. So if you see like a kitchen is a biggest experimental laboratory where like we also do, our wives also do experimentation, and the response is the like how we behave, right? Isn't it? So depending on our response, our behavior that day depends on the experimentation which was started in the kitchen, isn't it? Salt and if you see chili powder and all this masalas gets into a bit more like on a greater side of the quantity, you can understand what would be the response. Okay, yes, day in and day out, each and everywhere, there is some things that we need to consider, right? Because there is an interaction, but what happens is sometimes we neglect these interactions also. But interaction is there, right? One factor, it isn't only one factor which is affecting the response. There is always the other factor also affecting the response. But how these two factors are combined together, like let us take a small example of a coffee cup. Okay, in coffee cup, what will be the milk? Milk is the base. Let us take milk as a base. Then what you're adding up into it? Yes, what are you adding up into it? Just sugar and coffee powder. But still, throughout the world, you can't get the same taste. I don't know why, isn't it? So it's all the interaction between the sugar and the coffee powder. Okay. And if you have like 100 people also doing the same thing, and if you ask them to do this, prepare a coffee with just sugar and coffee powder, still they won't prepare, right? So that is the biggest thing. So yes, naturally interactions will be there, but yes, we need to look into, yes, we need to consider an interaction, or we don't need to consider an interaction. Okay. So that is all regarding the basic terminology. I hope that all the participants just remember this terminologies, because this will be going out throughout the day. Okay. Next, so interactions, what we say is, when there isn't any interaction, B1 and B2 just move parallelly together, and A1 is an equivalent gap between A1 and A2 and B1 and B2, like this. Okay, yes, but there is interaction, then the gap goes on reducing, and somewhere it may be touching. Yes, people say that this, or we say, sir, this both are not touching, but when we extend these lines, there it touches. So all basics of our engineering graphics, isn't it? So it touches up there. So what happens is, yes, not now in the experimental zone where you are doing, it may not be there, but still there will be somewhere they will be interacting. Okay, so this is regarding the interaction. So I don't want to get much into that. Now let us start the major thing where we need to start the experimentation. Most of us would have heard of this, one factor at a time, and I don't know how many would get frustrated even while hearing this. And I have met many people, and even when you speak about myself, I was also a bit like a down when selecting one design for my experimentation. I was like in frustration that I would like speak to my friends sometimes. What is this? Yeah, I could do my experimentation in 1 week and just wind it up, but I am not able to select this. And frankly speaking, it took me around 1 to 2 months, and with experts from my college, with their guidance, and then only I could like finalize which design I should select. Yeah, I can say, like, then you may be asking, sir, why, like, what was this all things about? Yes, the thing is, like, what happens is with us, like, we will be more focused on the research. Actually, the research part will be more focused on, and we don't want to shift our focus on some things which are actually we think that it is less important. Yes, but actually, when we speak, this thing is more important, because this is actually a part of the research. But we'll be only thinking about the response, and I need to just complete it and just wind up and move away as fast as possible and all that. But believe me, research is one where you just like open up your mind, and you go into many of the fields, and then you just explore much of the things. So, yes, so with this small briefing, again, let us come back to one factor at a time approach. Yeah, one factor at a time. Why isn't every researcher is keen on getting one factor at a time approach? So let us see what is it. Simple design, start with configuration and vary one factor. So we just vary one factor at a time. Okay, given k factors and the ith factor having ni level. So what is one factor at a time? So initially, when I was speaking, I was speaking regarding factors and levels, isn't it? Which factors to select, and at which level should I do the experimentations, isn't it? So initially, I was speaking regarding this. So one factor at a time, we generally concentrate on the levels at which I can do the experimentation. Okay, or what are the possible levels? Yes, sometimes you say that, sir, I have gone through the literature, and I have gone through the literature, and from there I could just find out these things, and yes, it was much easier for me to select from there, and all these things you may be saying. I'll ask you only one question: why actually your invigilators will be forcing to do some experimentation for or some basic studies, or we call it as preliminary studies also? Because the thing is, if I see, I'll just give one example. If I see a machine on, in the journal paper, so and so parameters, some on some machine, you have done, some researcher or some author has done some experimentation. Okay, fine. But are you able to replicate the same conditions at your area or in your lab? Is it possible? Right? You don't know, or what would be the atmospheric conditions there? What would be the machine there? What is the tool condition there? Yes, you may be using the same tool, you may be using the same machine, you may be using the same material. So at last, you may be using the same coolant. In mechanical terms, I am speaking about. You may be like, or let us take a normal example. You may be using the same milk packet. You may be using the maybe same coffee powder or same sugar, but there is usually a difference. What amount of quantity of water you are adding to it, at what temperatures you are boiling it. There are many things that are affected actually. As I told you, the cup of a coffee, right? It's never same in any region, right? So the conditions go on changing. You can't say like if I am using the same machine, also the temperatures at which I am working will be different. At the time at which I am working also is different. I'll just give you a small example why I asked you for factors and levels. Okay, I'll tell you like what happened is just why I am saying this thing is important is without this example I can't go ahead also. So what happens is I was measuring thermal conductivity of a fluid. I hope everyone understands what is the thermal conductivity of a fluid. Okay. Like my nanoparticles were prepared somewhere in summer. So I was checking. And normally everyone likes to work in the daytime, and at night a bit they want to relax. So daytime generally like before lunch and after lunch I used to check. And then too at varying temperatures. Okay, thermal conductivity of a fluid at different temperatures I wanted to check. What happened is I was just heating the fluid and checking the thermometer. By the time I would check, because the thermal conductivity, the sensors what we use for measuring the thermal conductivity, it needs some equilibrium condition, or it needs to be kept to a bit equilibrium condition so that it can give accurate readings. But each and every time what happened is I used to get different reading because the temperature would rise very abruptly in summer afternoons, and like as you know, like change in 1 degree also is actually an different. It shows a difference in the output, and the temp and the thermal conductivity is also different. So what happened is each and every time when I used to check, I used to get different thermal conductivity. And what happened is when finally I was checking the temperature, also I had a thermometer to check it. The temperature used to like vary differently. So what I had to do is I need to slow down. But what happens is I didn't have any sophisticated labs or controlled environmental conditions where I can do all these things, or sophisticated instrument which could maintain the temperature at a particular constant. So what I did is like in summers, afternoons I can't do anything. Sentence. Session is going on. Hello. Yeah. So what happened is with that, I couldn't control the afternoon temperatures. So what I used to do is I used to do it in the night, where the temperature range wouldn't, like around 10 or 11 o'clock, where the temperature wouldn't vary for most of the time. Okay. So that was one thing. At the same time, when you go with winters again, night times, you know how drastically the temperature would fall. I used to heat the temperature of the fluid and it will fall down immediately until before I measure it. Okay, so in winters I used to do it in the afternoons. So that is why a small briefing story. That's why we need to know the factors and levels at which we are experimenting. Okay. Yeah. So with this, let us start one factor at a time. So one factor at a time allows for the manipulation of only one factor during an experiment. Okay, we need to only manipulate one factor and others too, and all other factors are kept at the baseline. So usually one factor at a time, we are doing it for finding the levels are kept at the base levels. I will also discuss how we can do this. Next one is simple to analyze, right? Only one thing changes at a time, and you can see that what that changes has on the system. Like if you see, like if I say coffee and sugar, I'll keep sugar at base level. Like minimum is required, right, for taste. At least each and every human being has different taste glands, so the minimum sugar is required, and then I'll try to change the coffee level. So if I say where I'm satisfied with that raw taste of coffee, then I'll be satisfied, right? So there I can, that way is this, right? Next, time consuming. Changing one thing at a time can result in dozens of repeated experiments. That is one problem where is this one factor at a time is a bit time consuming. Okay, but yes, when you do one factor at a time, you can fix the levels. Okay, so let us say, how will you do this? So with the example of the bike, what we were discussing, right? The mileage of a bike of 100 cc, or okay, I'll give the names: Splendor and Pulsar. Well, these were the two bikes that we were looking into, right? So if you see, like as I told you in the last session also, like the number of persons can be 1 or 2. Okay, 1 or 2. The cc of an engine, because I couldn't get this, so cc of an engine will be 100 and 150, and the average speed on the Indian roads, I told you, like 50 and 70. Now, I'm saying this, yes, there are categorical factors also in this, but just I wanted to show you how to conduct one factor at a time. Okay, so now let us see. One factor at a time. What we'll do is, we'll be having, first we'll be varying factor 1. Okay, first we'll be varying factor 1. So what does that mean is, factor 2 and 3 should be kept at low. Factor 2 and 3 should be kept at low. Okay, so when we do this one factor at a time, so generally we use this method only. Like when we do normally without the design of experiments, we use one factor at a time only. So when we see like factor 1, I am varying. So what I am doing is factor 1, I am varying 1 and 2. That is number of persons is 1 and with a billion. So when we see this, when we compare with the response, 1 person, this is kept at low, this is kept at low. Naturally, the mileage will be more here, isn't it? With 1 person, always the mileage will be more. Okay, I have completed for factor 1 now. Okay, factor 1, I have completed the experimentation. Okay, now next let us go to factor 2. Factor 2, what I am doing, I am varying the factor 2. Okay, and keeping the factor 1 and factor 3 at low levels. So what I am doing here, I am varying the factor 1. That is, I am changing the capacity of an engine. That is 100 cc and 150 cc. So naturally, if I say 100 cc vehicle with 1 person and at a lowest average speed, I'll be getting the best mileage, isn't it? So year 1 mileage was there, year 1 mileage was there. Okay, fine. Next, let us go with this. Third one, what I do is factor 3, I am varying, keeping other 2 at the least one. That is, number of persons is 1 and capacity of engine is 100. So now if I see with average speed as 50, I am checking, then an average speed of 70, I am checking. Isn't it? Average speed of 70, I am checking here. And what I am saying here is, anyhow, if you say this, anyhow, with the lowest, with the average speed of 50, everyone knows that we'll be getting a mileage here, isn't it? So 3 kinds of responses you are getting here, isn't it? See, I'm just speaking about the responses. Why you can't use one factor at a time? Generally, what we use it, right? Generally, like the normal experimentation, we try to, more or less we try with one factor at a time only. If you can generally, like when you are not introduced with DOE, you know only that most probably we do this kind of experimentation. But here we have 3 conditions. Okay, but here we are not doing with any other extremes and all that. But yes, this is one problem with one factor at a time. But we are not interested in doing this. What we are interested here in one factor at a time is at this level. If I'm doing, see what I did is 1 person and 2 person. At this level, I got more. It is fine. Some value I got, but drastically is anything here. I am completely unsatisfied with this result. Like let us take this one as R1, this one as R2. Am I completely unsatisfied with this result? Like yes, here I was getting some average of 60 kilometers per liter, but here suddenly it fall to 20. Isn't it? Suddenly it fall to 20. What does this mean is this levels at which I am conducting the experiment, or this level, okay, the factor level, what is it here? The factor, these are anyhow low. So this shouldn't affect. But the level at which I am conducting the experiment is not feasible. Okay, let us go with this. I'm having this part, right? So if I see here at 150 cc, anyhow, this is 150 cc, and with varying conditions, if I am not able to conduct the experiment here, like conduct the experiment, or like in this terms, if I'm getting a mileage very less, then I can't use this level. Okay, and similarly here also. Okay, like for 70, the mileage is again dropping drastically, and I'm getting just 20 kilometers per liter. Then I can't use this level also. So this is how you go on cancelling the levels, and only levels which are feasible you try to do the experiment. But yes, let us come with this example. This is the best example where most of the machining people know into it, and this is where I was speaking about. If you have a machine at your place, okay, and you are using the same cutting conditions and all that, but from which level you should start, and which factors, anyhow factors sometimes major factors or principal factors which are affecting the machining process. Yes, but at which level should I start? Yes, so this is the most important part of the starting of experiment. So please, all the participants, be with me. Yes, so now everyone knows that, yes, there are some machine specific conditions, there are some tool specific conditions. I hope everyone knows this, machine specific conditions and tool specific conditions, or we can call it as again material specific also. Material specific is also there. Material specific conditions also, right? So how can I start this? Okay, so from which levels should I consider? This is now completely new domain, right? No one of us know actually. Like we are doing only with coffee and tea and all these things. Yes, a bit of salt kitchens, but yes, this is completely new area, isn't it? So usually when we go with machining, always we go with the we need to know the speed and depth of cut. These are the three factors that each and every one of us want to know it. And what are the levels that through which I should do this experimentation, isn't it? So generally what we do is we call this as pilot experiments for fixing up the or checking the feasibility of levels. So generally, how will I get low and high? So you will be asking, sir, anyhow you are saying that you are fixing up the levels, and why did you select 90 and 180 for cutting speed? Yes. So I should start from somewhere, isn't it? I can't say that start from somewhere. So where should I start? That's why I was saying material specific conditions and tool specific conditions. So once you are, let us assume that you wanted to do some machining on Inconel. It may be 718 or 815 or something, 825 and something, some kind of material. So usually when you go with the materials handbook, okay, when you go with materials handbook, in the materials handbook they'll be specifying some range in which you can do machining of Inconel. Let us take this number. So I am very comfortable with this number, Inconel 718. Okay. So when it comes to machining, when you go with materials handbook, Inconel, they will be mentioning some cutting speed, range of a cutting speed. So that is this range 80 to 180. Okay, if you are going below 180, you can ask me why this thing, how this thing 80 and 180 they are fixed it up. They are saying is there is feasibility of machining when you use speeds between 90 and 180. Okay, there is feasibility of machining Inconel 718. Okay, so what does that mean is you can't machine. No, I can machine below that, but the machinability will not be good for that material. Okay, so what does this range cover now? If I say that the machinability of the 80 to 90, the Lincoln 718 has a machinability of 90 to 180. So what does this range cover now? The range covers all the machines. Okay, if you are having a very rigid machine, okay, you can go for an higher levels of the speed. If you are having a low end machine, yes, anyhow it should be your machine should have feasibility of going above 90 meters per minute cutting speed. Okay, so we call it as cutting velocity also. Okay, so that feasibility. But what does this range cover? As I told you, it covers all the machines and all the dynamics of the machines. So I don't want to comment. Anyhow, we as a researcher, I don't want to get into the dynamics of a machine and check which one is feasible for me. What I can do is I can just do some experimentation and I can see that yes, this machine can run on this thing. Okay, so let us go with one thing is that I got this 90 and 180, which are the highest and lowest levels machining, which is specified in the materials handbook. Okay, next one is feed and depth of cut. Yes, sometimes this we get any one of this, we won't get both of this. That is from your tools. There has actually tool specific conditions. So most of the time we get it from the tools catalog. Okay, the manufacturer's catalog. If you see Kennametal or other tool manufacturers also, from the catalog, depending on the inserts what you select, we get this from the tool catalog. Then we're mentioning like 0.1 and 0.3 and something. It actually, if you see in real terms, these two are interrelated. If one is increasing, the other should reduce automatically. If one is decreasing, the other should increase automatically. So they are vice versa, always speed and depth of cut. Okay, so this is where from where you get this values, minimum and maximum. Okay, so now with this conditions, with minimum and maximum conditions, what I should do is I should start conducting the experiments. That is for checking which levels is feasible. Okay, so usually you can't start with higher levels of parameters, right? So we need to check the safety of the operator and the machine and the workpiece also, or the tooling also. So always we try to do it from the lower level. That is why we call it as one factor at a time and keeping the other factors at base levels. Okay, so usually we do it in this. And what we say is like from 90 I go on checking. 90 I check. I have kept less number of levels. 90 I check. I may check 120 and 150 and 180. So what happens is at 90 it was feasible, 120 it was feasible, somewhere 150 it was feasible with cutting forces was more. But what happens at 180 is sometimes the chatter marks will be more, right? The chatter, your tool in the machine doesn't have a capability or rigidity to actually take the cut. So what happens is the workpiece, the tool is not able to cut, so it will try to glide on the workpiece and chatter marks may come up. So what happens is at that time you can just stop and you can say that 180 is not feasible, or sometimes some machines it's very low end machine, 150 also is sometimes maybe not possible cutting speed. I'm just speaking about one level. So how can you just break up and fix which level is fine? Lower level is sometimes always fine. Okay, for most of the machines, what is specified from the materials handbook or maybe tools handbook catalogs, lower level is most probably is fine. But sometimes it may not, the speed is very low, then it may not take the load and some vibrations may come up. But most probably lower level is always fine. Okay, so this is how you check up the levels, and you just fix the levels using one factor at a time approach. Okay, so these are the levels which are feasible on your machine. So these are the levels which are actually feasible on your machine. Okay, so this is where we call it as pilot experiments. So we call it as pilot experiments. This thing as pilot experiments where we fix the levels. So one factor at a time helps us fixing the levels at which I need to do the levels of factors actually. Okay, levels of factors at which we can do the experimentation. Next, yes. So once the one factor at a time is over, now we enter into the full factorial design. Okay, full factorial design. So what is full factorial design? So generally doing all the combinations together. Okay, blindly, if you say I have done all the combinations together, then or I have experimented at all the combinations possible, then I call it as full factorial experiment. So use all possible combinations, all levels of all factors. That is called as full factorial experiment. Given k factors and the ith factor having n level, the required number of experiments can be, generally call it as this way, 2 to the power of k. So this part actually represents the level and this k represents the factor. Okay, so where k is 3 level experiments. Okay, when or where k is or when k is 3 level experiment, the total number of experiments would be 2 to the power of 3 is equal to 8. So 8 number of runs you need to do, or 8 number of experiments. We need to conduct. So what does it say? When full factorial results in a huge number of experiments, usually full factorial results in a huge number of experiments, it may not be possible to run all. Use subsets of levels of factors and the possible combinations of this. Okay. So this is fractional factorial, sorry. We are just defining the fractional factorial. So usually sometimes what happens is, as I told you, we are getting a huge number of experimentation. Yes, if you want to sometimes reduce, as we are looking into that green, white, green and yellow and red zones, when we open the DOE in the software, in the same way here also, like fractional factorial, when it's not possible to do all the experimentation, then I can use fractional factorial. So it's like instead of k to the power of k, it is k minus 1, or it may be k minus 2 also, like when we see there in the chart. So it's like instead of doing 8 number of experiments, you are doing 4 number of experiments here. But what you are doing is you are compromising with the range in which you are experimenting. So your results can be partially dependable. Okay, now let's keep that fractional factor aside. Now let us go with full factorial. So in this again we have 2 types, but let us start here. So perform experiments at all levels of all factors. Hence, perform a large number of experiments that are needed. All interactions are captured. The main advantage of full factorial experiment is that all interactions are captured here. And generally, we use this for preliminary studies. Now, what is this preliminary studies? The effect of factors on the response can be identified. Yes. So generally we do this for preliminary studies. So now what is this preliminary studies? Before that, let me give a glance. Usually we have 2 types. One is 2-level full factorial experiment. 2-level full factorial experiments. Usually we do it. We call it the preliminary experiment. We do it for finding the factors. Okay, which factor is dependent on, or which factor is affecting the response more. If it is not affecting the response more, then we can omit that factor. So for fixing the factors, actually we do this 2 to the power of k. Or generally we can, instead of 2, we can have 3, 4, 5, anything. That is completely full factorial experimentation. Next, now coming to the advantages of factorial experiments over 1 factor at a time. Now let us see this. Fractional factorial design are more efficient than 1 factor at a time. Yes, as everyone knows that we can't compare it with the efficiency of this often higher end designs. We always compare it with the previous ones, right? Like what we have seen in the previous one was 1 factor at a time. So it is more efficient. That is what they are saying. They provide more information at similar or lower cost. Okay, full factorial usually provide information at similar or lower cost. They can find optimal conditions faster than 1 factor at a time. As I told you, we are doing that combinations of all levels and factors. So generally, with less number of experiments, we can narrow down very fast when compared to 1 factor at a time. Now, factorial designs allow additional factors to be examined at no additional cost. So generally we say that with the same number of experiments, we can go with many number of factors. Okay, with the same number of experiments, we can go with many number of factors without adding any additional cost to the company. Okay, so that is also one advantage here because as we say, with the number of experiments, as I told you, the minimum number of experiments is required. That is what we desire, and we desire a maximum output, isn't it? So how can that be done? Yes, full factorial or factorial design is one answer to that. Then, when the effect of one factor is different from different levels of another factor, it cannot be detected by one factor at a time experiment. That one factor is different. The effect of one factor is different from different levels at another factor. So you can't get any interaction. You don't know which factor is affecting and how much it is affecting. So the use of one factor at a time when interactions are present can lead to serious misunderstanding of how the response changes with the factor. Okay. So as I told you, one factor at a time can't be chosen for fixing the factors which are affecting the response. You can, yes, one factor at a time, you can do it for only fixing the levels, but you can't do it for fixing the factors. That is why for fixing the factors, I need to do 2 to the power of k. So this I can do it so that I can know which factor is affecting. Okay. Now the factorial design allows the effects of a factor to be estimated at several levels of another factor, yielding conclusions that are valid over a range of experimental conditions. So let us start with this, the basic factorial design. So we call it as 2 to the power of k factorial design. This is the most basic factorial design, where 2 is the levels and 3 is the factors. So used as a preliminary experimentation. Each of the k factors assign only 2 levels. You can't go more than 2 levels because already it is being fixed. Okay. The levels are usually high and low. Okay, as we were looking into the machining also, the levels are usually high and low. So scheme is usually as a useful as a preliminary experimentation program before an ambitious study is undertaken. So we are always ambitious, and like everyone knows, like we want to do all the experimentation as fast as possible. But having a look at one factor at a time and having a look at fixing the factors and the levels is very important, so that the data what you get or the experimentation when you go for that more ambitious experimentation procedure, there you can rely on the responses, and there you will not be in a position where you will be like you won't be in a position where you can't give any explanation. Why is this affecting, or how much is it affecting, and all these things. So or how it is affecting and all these things. So let's keep this thing in mind, so that some abnormality or some errors and all these things can be reduced, and we can give a more better explanation we can write better explanation in journals also. Okay, so outcome of k to the 2 to the power of k factorial experiments will help identify the relative importance of factors, and also will offer some knowledge about the interactions. Effect. Some knowledge, yes, it may not be full knowledge because it is not a full factorial design. It's just a basic factorial design. Okay. Now, generally, we get like this when we imply 2 to the power of k. We take this x1 and this line, this axis, x2 in this, and x3 in this, and in the directions we have high and low, and we form what you call as a workspace in which we are experimenting. So what is this like? It is just an engineering approach, right? A statistical approach where we know that I know what is the work domain. Okay, so in this domain, I am going for a search. Okay, I am going for a search. If it is only 1 and 2, like for x2, it is just 1 and 3. What is saying? Like okay, here let us see a for a factor minus 1 and plus 1. I can have something in between a 0 also here. Okay, 0 level. Here also 0 level, something like this. So I can experiment in between also. So what I wanted to make you understand from here is, like, this is our search domain. We need to fix the search domain. The better the search domain you fix it up with the factors and the levels, the better you can, or the faster you can confine with the results. Okay. So please try to see that you get now anyhow or if you don't have, or let us or let me say, like, if you don't confirm this domain in which you want to search, the domain can be anything, isn't it? Or if I want to say, like, if I want to search something in Hyderabad, like the domain can be Hyderabad, or domain can be that particular area, or domain can be something that particular street. So you can understand what is a search domain. So you need to confirm. What I meant to say is, in research, what we try to do is we try to confine our domain, and in that domain, I want to search some optimal things. And then we go for optimization, and where we try to extend our domains, and there for other various levels also outside the boundaries also we can, if we can predict it. That is where optimization and all these things come in place. Okay. Yeah, so generally when we say 2 to the power of 3, it's 8 experiments that we need to do, and these are something coded factors that we get it from our DOE softwares. We call -1, -1, -1, +1, +1, and so on. We get all the coded factors here. And with this experiment, like trial experiment, trial 1, so I have to do for -1, -1, -1. That is, this is low, this is low, and this is low. So at these levels, I need to conduct the experiment. Then this is low, and this is high. Okay, so at this level, I need to conduct. So this way, you go on conducting the experiments, and then finally, you'll be noting down the responses. Yeah, so now let us start with the example what we took in the second session of the first day. Okay, so we had the same example where we were comparing one Pulsar and one Splendor. Everyone likes, right? I hope everyone likes to ride Pulsar, but they want to get the mileage of a Splendor. And each and every time we have this thing in our mind, anyhow, we try to compromise on our wishes and dreams, and we try to go for Splendor and all these things. But we don't have an approach which we say that this is good or that is better, and we just see, like, yeah. So this is what I was speaking about in the last session. Like, what is the influence? So when we see, this was response from the previous STTPs, where some of them responded, and most of them thought that cubic capacity of an engine is the most affecting thing. Right? If you go back, if I keep this 2 bikes in front of you and say which bikes will give me a better mileage, everyone, 99% of them will be saying that Splendor will give me a better mileage. Yes, but what is there? What is the approach that you have followed there? Yes, what is the approach that you have followed there? I'll tell you. The approach what you have followed there was one factor at a time. Okay, you just thought of CC of an engine was the one. Okay, you just were thinking of CC of an engine was one, which will give me more mileage, or it is affecting the mileage. Some thought that no, if I'm going at a higher speed, yes, it may give me less mileage. This also everyone knows. If I go single person, this also will be there, as we are looking into one factor at a time. But each and every individual, like if I go here, 7 people thought that they only kept all these parameters, like one factor, the number of persons, a speed constant, and or at a lower level, and they thought that CC of an engine was the most affecting. What others did, or what 4 people did, other than 4 people, they kept this to a baseline, and they thought that average speed, if it is more, the mileage would be less. And only 2 persons thought that no, all these things are okay, but 2 persons thought that no, if I go with 1 person, I'll be getting more mileage, or 2 persons, I'll be getting less mileage. So all things, we do it generally in day-to-day life. We do it, as we thought with the DMart example and the Big Bazaar examples and all that. It is one-on-one actually, like one-on-one. So with one factor at a time, this was our approach. Know that yes, what this was there, this response what we got was, we thought it as a one factor at a time. Okay, now let us see with full factorial what is happening. So I am taking this 2 to the power of k full factorial. Why is I am having only 2 levels here, right, for just preliminary experimentation. Now coming to this chart, everyone knows that this is the window which opens up when you go with a full factor, when we open up the design expert, okay? That is factorial experiments. So this all white is generally full factorial, then green fractional factorials. Okay, so as we were looking into the last session also, like 2 to the power of 3, this is what we were concentrating on, right? 2 to the power of 3. With 2 to the power of 3, I am going for 3 factors anyhow, right? I'm going for 3 factors. But if I want to consider the 4th factor also with 8 number of experiments, then I can go for fractional factor. So what does that mean? With minimum number of experiments, I'm going with maximum, means more number of factors. I'm considering more number of factors. Okay. Let us say here 2 to the power of 4. I'm observing for 4 factors and I'm doing 16 experiments. But instead of that, I can consider 5 factors, and with 16 experiments also I can do it. But this is in green. Then you can see I can do 6 factors also with 16 number of experiments. I can do experimentation with 6 factors with 16 experiments. Yes, but still I'm getting some result. 7 factors also do. I can do 8 factors also. I can go with 15 factors. I can consider 15 factors and do only 16 experiments, but it is going in red zone. So what does this signify? Green is go ahead directly. You can directly go ahead. It is called as resolution 5 or higher resolution. Design are just about as good as full factorial design, right? So generally at a greater savings in the number of runs to perform. As if your experimentation is costly and like for finding the factors, if your experimentation is costly and all this, yes, you can go with fractional factorial, where you can go with the greens one also, greens. Okay. Or else, yes, it's called as resolution 4 design. This is just a number given. Okay. So as are good choice for screening designs, since the main effect will be clear of 2 interactions. Okay. Yes, you can consider, but with caution. And the resolution 3 is design can be misleading when significant 2 interactions are affecting. So usually we need to stop and think, are we actually, or do we really need to go with this kind of experiments, or it's not required? So generally we don't prefer the red zone here. Generally we don't prefer the red zone. Red zone is very less, but still we don't prefer. Fractional factorial, yes, green if it is there, yes, in green zone you can just do it up. Okay. Now coming to the full design, the thing what I told you in the last thing, elaborate in the last session, that actually what is actually affecting the response. Excuse me. Yeah. So let us start. So what is actually affecting the response? So depending on this, this was the run order, which is given or which was specified with the DOE. Okay, from the DOE software. Okay, so with this, we had some standard mileage test results. So depending on the run order, I have done some experimentation, and I have noted down the values here. I've noted down the values of the mileages what I got with various combinations of the test. So this each and every researcher has to follow this. Once this thing is done, you'll get a column where you can find the number of factors like which are there. We have 3 factors, and response was the mileage, their units, what are their factors. This was the response. You can just, this is a checklist, you can say. Okay. Then you have deviations, and these are the levels at which you are doing. Okay. Apart from that, you have like this information where you can find out. It's like two level factorial design. 3 factors were there. 8 runs were there. No blocking I have done. Okay. Next, these are also the same thing, like factors which are there, and the values and the maximum values, these are coded, and uncoded things are there here. Okay. And responses also, you have your rate, and minimum is average is this one, maximum is this one, and so and so. It will give you these values also, minimum and maximum of the response actually. Okay. So minimum was 50 and the maximum was 70 here. So that is what is given, mean, standard deviation, ratios, and some main effects. It will be given that. So usually, like, I consider only 3 factors because I don't want to get into interactions at present. So I generate these 3 factors, and this is how it will be representing. This is the work domain where the 3 factors are where the work area is specified, and there wasn't any transformation required. So with this, if I say P values less than 0.05 indicate that model terms are significant. Okay, so what does this say? P value is less than 0.05. Yes, so your model is significant already, right? Then you are saying the number of persons. This is also a factor which is affecting. If it is less than, okay, if the P value is less than more than 0.05, then it is not significant actually. Okay, then average speed is also significant. If you see what is not significant when it comes to mileage here is engine capacity. So all 7 people who chose that engine capacity is the one which is affecting the response more, but the experiment or this thing, the result is showing something different. What it's saying is the engine capacity is actually not that significant for me. What is significant is number of persons where I'm traveling or with the average speed what I'm traveling. So what does this mean? Like the other conditions which were there actually, the other conditions like number of persons who are traveling, the average speed at which you are traveling, these are the 2 significant terms. Like if I have a pulsar also, but if you see like a pulsar nowadays, no one is going single riding, right? Yes, if you're going a single riding, then the conditions will be different. But if you're going a double riding, like if you do it for your child or somewhere, generally we'll go for a double riding, right? At that time, your pulsar is more significant when it comes to the bearing the load and all these things. At the same time, average speed, when you're going at an average speed of 50, you'll be getting a very good mileage. So this is what I wanted to show you. Like we generally, yes, in general day-to-day life, we do only 1 factor at a time experimentations. Let it be knowingly or unknowingly we do that. But when we use DOE, this kind of things come out actually. And where we had a myth of like engine capacity is more affecting, no. If you see, like I'll give really very good examples. If you see Maruti 800, like Maruti 800, people say it's a mileage king and it is the most sold car in the country. But at the same time, Desire is there, Swift is there. This give better mileage in certain conditions than Maruti 800. When this both vehicles like 800 and Desire, Swift Desire, sorry, not Swift Desire, Maruti Desire, both are loaded completely. In this condition, Desire is giving better mileage than Maruti 800. Then where is the point of selecting a smaller engine, isn't it? So this myths actually, this example was to just clear myths actually, what we usually think and what actually is in what is actual thing. Okay, so I hope with this example we can clearly say that design of experiments is actually useful. Okay, while selecting the factors also. So one more thing was like R square value and adjusted R square value. So usually this will come about 90 if the experimentation conditions and everything is under your control and you have done it experimentation at utmost care, and predicted R square value shouldn't be difference between them shouldn't be more than 0.2. All right, adjusted R square value and predicted R square value shouldn't be more than 0.2. So that is one thing that you have to always keep in mind. And adequate precision measures the signal to noise ratio. The ratio greater than 4 is desirable. Our ratios allow 16, indicates an adequate signal. Okay, so the things what we have considered, the values what we have considered, or the values what we have got from the experimentation are actually good enough. Okay, so this is how you confirm that your experimentation what you have done is also right enough. Apart from that, you'll be getting some equations, so regression equations, what we call it as, and we are always trying to find out. And we don't we generally say that RSM, we get very trying to sometimes force fit. So when we deal with RSM, I'll try to say all these things. Then this is for actual factors. That was for coded factors. Coded factor was ABC. This is for actual factors, the number of persons in. So this values change with actual factors. Then you have some Babcock's and this thing. Here, as I told you, the lambda, the recommendation transformation was none. As lambda is equal to 1. This is not required. If there is, or the software says there is any required of transformation, then what we do is, then we come here and then we select some of the things which transformation the software has recommended. So once we do this, again we go back with the effects. Once this thing is done, we go with the effects and then again diagnostics and model stuffs we go with. Okay, we need to repeat the procedure again. So this is how we get from the graph. So usually we get these things from the software itself. So that is why we use DOE. Sometimes we don't need to draw all these things. Just keep the values and all the beautiful graphs come up with us. Yes, but when you want to combine all the three, there you have to get the values and you can draw it in some other software which is used for drawing the graphs. Okay, so if you see this is what it was saying with number level 1 and number 2. With level 1, the mileage was more actually. It was in this range. With level 2, with number of persons too, this was the thing. But when it came to capacity of an engine, there wasn't much difference, like 60 and this is 57 or 58. So there was much different. That's why it was saying that the engine capacity is not much significant factor. You can vomit it. Then your average speed with 50, you had a good mileage, that is 60 to 65. And with 70, the mileage was like 54.3 to somewhere 57. Yes, in order, but when you keep a cursor at this point in the software, you'll get this point value also. So from there, you can note down the point values and you can draw the separate graphs combining all these things. Okay, so this was the interactions. There wasn't any interaction with this. Okay. Okay, now let us take one more example of the machining part. Like when I was speaking about the machining, yes, so most of the mechanical people who have joined this STTP, I hope around 70% of them are mechanical. So without giving an example of mechanical, one example, it wouldn't be much completed. Okay, so usually, like let us see, we like from the literature we got this like 420. Actually, I have taken it in RPM, but it should be in meters per minute feed and depth of cut. Okay, so if you see this, till now, before we were speaking about only 2 to the power of k factorial design. Now it is 3 to the power of k factorial design. This is full factorial. Full factorial design. So initially, 1 factor at a time and 2 to the power of k factorial design can be said that yes, we are trying to check the fix up the factors at the level. So that is what we could have done it here also. That is what we have done it here also. Like this was not significant and this 2 was significant. So I selected only this 2. So now if you see, if I take 2 to the power of k, initially it was 2 to the power of 3. Now it became 2 to the power of 2. Okay, so like that. Okay, so initially like we had like three factors and 3 levels. So 3 to the power of 3 will give me around 27 experiments or 27 experiments I need to do, and this is how the chart will be. And just already mentioned the response R1 here. So from the experimentation, we got all this results. Now we had only one response, that is surface roughness. Okay, surface roughness is the only one response that we are considering. It can be material removal rate, or it can be cutting forces. It can be any response, right? This is R1. You can have R2 and R3 also here. Now coming to this replications. Okay, coming to the replication part of it. Now I have done experimentation at 420. The speed, feed is 0.1 and depth of cut is 0.5. I have done an experimentation at this. How many times I have done this experimentation? Here, if you see from this, I have done it only one time. But can I rely on that one time? So as we were looking into the previous example also, like if you have locked your house, you locked it, fine. You know that you locked it, but still you try to pull the lock and check it that it is the what you call the hook is not coming out, isn't it? You check it, isn't it? Apart from that, as I told you regarding the car, your remote, you are off it, right? You are just clicked it and your car is locked with center locking, but still you go and check the handle, right? Your door is opening or not. What are you doing there? You are doing replication. Why are you doing replication? You don't have confidence on yourself? Yes, you have confidence on yourself. You have done it many times in your life. And day in and day out, you'll be using that. But still, you try to replicate there. When on day-to-day life also, when you try to do this, then why don't you do it in the experimentation? That is one way of looking into it. But why you have to do it, that is also you need to consider. There are errors. There are human errors. There are machine errors. The workpiece material may be having some defects. Okay. There may be some power fluctuations. The measuring instrument, like I'm doing surface roughness, the measuring instrument may have some errors. I am reading as a person, as an experimenter, I am reading the readings from this is TALISURF, right? Surface roughness, I go with TALISURF. TALISURF, when I have noted down 2.19, 2.19. First I write down 2.1 and 2.29. How much is the difference? I don't even get an idea. 2.19 or 2.91. Is there anything that I can do in this while writing down 2.19 and 2.91? So I need to confirm it, isn't it? So confirming what should I do is, again, I need to run the experiments at this levels. So once I run the experiment at this levels, and if 2.19 and next time also I'll be getting 2.21, then I can fix myself that yes, I got this. So what I do is I don't take any one of this. Again, I take the average of this. Okay, then I note it down. So that's why usually people will be asking you when it is purely experimentation projects, then people will be asking you how many replications have you done for each and every level. So this has to be done. Yes, it may be Taguchi. This is full factorial still. This is full factorial still. But when you go with Taguchi, this becomes the most impacting. Right? So when you go with Taguchi experimentation, 100% you need to do replications. Otherwise, people will never, because there you're doing least number of experiments, and at least in that least number of experiments, you should know that whatever you've done or whatever you're reporting should be right. So there, the importance of replications is more, even more when compared to full factorial. Okay, so that is regarding the replications here. Okay, and we go on doing the experimentation, and these are some of the values which we get from the experimentation. So as already told you before, you need to save this design, because each and every time this combination is a full factorial, then the combination somewhere you'll be finding out of this 27 combinations what I have done. Because with full factorial, what happens is I am using all the combinations at all the levels. So somewhere I'll be finding the same level. So there I can note down the response here. But what happens is that other fractional factorial or RSM or Taguchi, these combinations go on changing. So once I create a design, I need to save the design. Then only you'll be getting the same combination. Otherwise, the combination will be something different, and what your experimentation will be something different, and you can't insert it in the software. So please try to keep this in mind. Full factorial is fine if you don't save also, but fractional factorial, Taguchi, and RSM, you need to save the design. Okay. Yeah. So now the same things, you will be getting an information chart where you can mention where you can find out what the inputs you have given, speed, feed, and depth of cut. Units are there, factors are there. Then what was the high and low? You can just verify here. high and low, what you had, then you have the software inputs like the, okay. Then you have what are the levels at which you are doing the experiments, 3 levels, and you have the responses also here, so which is an array, and the minimum and the maximum numbers also you'll be getting here. Okay. Next, you'll be getting some graphs. You can get it like from when you compare it array and speed, or array and feed, or array and depth of cut. You can have it. Okay, so here we are considered around all the factors. Only ABC 3 interactions I didn't consider here. And when we go with this, we need to check also, like from the Bobcox plot, that we need any transformation or not. If it doesn't need, then we can follow the step one by one transformation, effect, ANOVA, diagnostics, you can go. So this is half normal plot. And the effects we have selected here. And this is the ANOVA table. So generally when we see surface roughness, for surface roughness, feed is the one which is the most significant factor. I hope everyone understands feed. So if you can see here, model is significant, speed is fine significant, but the most significant factor is feed. And here the least significant or which is not required is depth of cut. Can anyone tell me why the depth of cut is completely insignificant here? If you come back with the levels here, when you see the levels which I have used, like this is 0.1 and this is 0.3 I have used it, isn't it? 0.1 and 0.33. Whereas when compared to depth of cut values are pretty high here. And as I told you, these both are interchangeable, right? If the depth of cut is more, the feed should be less, and the feed is more, the depth of cut should be less. As the values here of the depth of cut is very high, if I have taken 0.1 and 0.3, generally with inserts, if you see, it is when we use cardboard insert is 0.1 and 0.3. There, this one also would be significant, but the effect of this would be significant, but the effect of this will be less. Okay, this factor. And if you see in the Design Expert 12, the latest one, the link trial version which you have installed, there it will give directly the percentage of how much percentage is the factor affecting. So the percentage also will be coming up. This factor, how much it is affecting on the response. So the latest ones are actually very good. Now coming to the R-square values. So the experimentation what we have done was in this range, and the predicted R-square value was this. That this precision should be more than 4. So this one also was good with us. Then we have like if you can see that 95% of this you can get this coefficient estimations. So this is fine, and this is our regression model. Okay, but still we are getting just a normal equation. We don't get any polynomial equations. These are just a first order equations. Okay, this is normal plot, Gaussian plot. So I don't want to get into all these things. Bobcox plot, there is some inversion required actually, lambda 0.5. So this is what I was speaking about. Lambda 0.5 is required. Usually this conversion is required. So I need to go back there in the transformation chart, and there I need to select lambda, it is inverse square root. I have to select that, and again I need to repeat the process. So after repeating only, I have just placed it in the PPT. Okay, predicted versus actual. This is how reliable is your RSM model. Sorry, not RSM, sorry, your regression model. And if you see one factor at a time, when you compare it with surface roughness, and initially it is increasing and then it is reducing. So what you can say is this factor is enough for me for checking this. 600 RPM is better. After that it is reducing. So I don't want to go ahead of this. So I can just restrict myself with 600 RPM. Okay, so this is what you can inference from this graph. Then what is happening is, as the feed is going on increasing, the surface roughness is also increasing, but the change from 0.1 to 0.18 is not much significant, but after 0.8 it's more. So I can select 0.18. Okay, millimeters per revolution as my feed. And here depth of cut, as it shows that depth of cut doesn't have any significance on surface roughness. So yes, I can't. It doesn't matter much depth of cut, but when it goes to material removal rate, depth of cut is significant. Okay, so this is what is the output that we get from full factorial design. So once I can plot all the three graphs into this, and you can just say that this one was good at this level, it was good at this level, it was good, and you can select any level from the depth of cut. So with this conditions, I can get better better surface roughness. Okay. So before ending up, I wanted to just give a briefing about the fractional factorial design. So usually when the number of factors is large, full factorial design requires a large number of experimentation. So where you can't do full factorial design, there you can use this fractional factorial design also when the number of factors are more. Okay, when it is 2 or 3, it is fine. You can go with the full factorial design. Otherwise, when you have 2 or 3, 4 factors, it is okay. But when you are going for higher number of factors for trial experiments, right, preliminary experiments, then yes, you can go with the fractional factorial design for preliminary experiments also. So in this case, fractional factorial design can be used. So requires previous experiment, that is 2 to the power of k minus 1. So it's almost requires half of the experiments as a full factorial design. Okay, so in a multivariable experimentation with k number of variables and L number of levels per variable demand, number of measurements for complete understanding of the process or calibration. So in statistics, fractional factorial design are experimental designs consisting of careful chosen subset, that is fraction. Often subset. So we need to carefully choose actually at which levels you need to do and all this. Full factorial design, you don't need to all this thing, but yes, you need to check correctly which set of things I can go with. If these are number of experiments what I'm getting with fractional factorial is okay. With that, can I get the output and all these things? You need to check. A careful observation is required. Okay. For experimental runs of a full factorial design. The subset is chosen as to exploit the sparsity of effects principles using a fraction of the effort of full explore the area, is it feasibility of the area, but with a fraction of the experiments only. So, so if you want to do something like this, or with where you want to just find out just a factor of which factors, like this was one machining area was one where I told you that there are only 3 factors, speed, feed, and depth of cut, which is significant, and that was much easy for me. But if you go with chemical, pharmaceutical, and some other areas, the number of factors affecting through this that through fractional factorial also, that yes, that is not useful. So that way we can use it. So generally, like I'll just give you like if this from the table, if you can see 7 factors, 2 levels. Generally, if you go with a full factorial design, it is 128. 128 experiments you need to do, usually full factorial design. But using a fractional factorial design, you can do it with only 8 set of experiments. Okay. So how much reduction is there? 128 to 8. Okay, 128 to 8. So you can imagine, instead of doing 128 experiments, you are doing it with only 8 experiments. But the reliability also will be a factor, but still, this is just an example. And it generally goes with the red zone. I hope this goes with red zone. Okay. So most of the time, it is not possible to conduct that many experiments. The question that is asked is, can we reduce the number of experiments and yet get an adequate representation of the relation between the outcomes of the experiment and the variations of the factors? So that is what is asked generally. And the answer is yes. So fractional factorial experiments can be done to reduce the number of experiments. So replace the full factorial with fractional factorial design. Okay. So in fractional factorial design, only certain combinations of the levels of the factors are used to conduct the experiment, and you should be very careful which combination is actually used there. The combination what you're thinking may affect the thing, so you need to consider that set of combination. This clause helps to reduce the number of Remember, the price to be paid is that all interactions will not be resolved. That is the only price when it goes with fractional factorial design. So in this simple case of 2 or 3 factors, the economy for reducing the number of experiments by 1 may not be all that important. So usually, as I told you, with 1 or 2 factors, it's not that good enough. Yes, you can take full factorial and you can do it, but it is only helpful when you have large number of factors to be there. Okay, and when it is expected some factors or interactions between some factors to be unimportant. So when the interaction is sometimes not that important, yes, there you can select fractional factorial experiments, and fractional factorial design is useful when main effects dominate, with interaction effects being a lower order. So usually it is, see, like, I don't want to know about the interactions also. Sometimes it may be there in such cases, or only where the main factors are affecting more. In that case, this fractional factorial design can be used up. So the same chart again, you should be knowing actually this, the white are actually full factorial, and green, yellow, and red are fractional factorial. Okay. So now we are at the end of the session, and before ending the session, I wanted to summarize the things what we have looked into this session. The first thing what we were looking into was like fixing the levels and factors. So this both were most important thing for us. So for fixing the levels, I used 1 factor at a time approach. So with 1 factor at a time, I checked what is the feasibility of the level. With that level, am I able to get the response? If I am not able to get any of that response, that level I'll be cancelling it. So I'll be trying to check in which level I can do the experimentation. So that is where we get it with the 1 factor at a time. Then for fixing the factors, we went with factorial design, where 2 to the power of k can be used, or fractional factorial designs also can be used for fixing the knowing the factors which are actually which can be considered or which actually affect the response. So once we know of both of this, we went with a full factorial design. It is 3 to the power of k, so 3 to the power of 3. With that, we went with 27 runs, and there we got for surface roughness, fade was the most important factor, and which were the levels at which I'll be getting better surface finish. Okay, so that is what we got. That is what we got it from the results. Okay, so this is one thing where you should keep in mind. One thing should be considered. So for this too, 1 factor at a time, and this things is recommendable so that you know what are the levels and factors. After that, it is depends on us. Should I go for a full factorial design or Taguchi or RSM? So in the afternoon session, when we come back, we'll be discussing all this, and we'll be saying actually, are we doing or are we adopting this thing? If someone has told me, my supervisor has told me, or my senior has told me, or the paper has done it, it's like bluffing ourselves. So instead of that, what we'll be doing is we'll be trying to see that, yes, is this our experimentation, is it fitting the design? We shouldn't force fit the design. So this all things we'll be dealing in the afternoon session. So so we have gone through 1 factor at a time for fixing the levels, 2 to the power of k factorial designs for knowing which factor is affecting, and full factorial design, and apart from that, introduction to fractional factorial design. So I just open up the session for any queries. If any participants have any queries, please they can post us so that we can clear their doubts from the session or from their personal experiences also.
Thank you, sir. So if any participant would like to interact or ask anything, you can directly unmute and you may ask, sir.
Or you can mention in the chat window also so that we can answer your queries.
Okay, if there is no queries, then we can end the session. Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving us a complete session on factorial design, one factor at a time approach. And many were asking, in fact, the other day regarding the selection process and how to decide for composite, if I am not wrong, composite material, it is very um, stochastic in nature, so we don't know which parameter to consider and which parameter to omit. With your example, whoever is working in this area, they'll have a better understanding. So thank you very much. Thank you for giving us this session. And in the afternoon session, please do join at 1:30, and there we will be discussing on RSM, and there again we will try to cover the similar type of case study and with the similar type of examples, so that they can have a complete picture about one factor at a time approach, factorial and fractional factorial, and also RSM. Thank you all. I'll be sharing the feedback link